Hey everybody, Eric Drobel here, neurodivergent animator guy. I had a request to further explain my thoughts on the step blocking timing thing, and I realized you need a lot of visual examples to really solidify this concept. Looking at the timeline really helps the most. So I cobbled together this video based off of an old animation I did. And before I jump in, there's two concepts we're not really talking about, but you should understand first. We're not really talking about frame rate. We're not really talking about spacing. Frame rate and spacing are absolutely important. We never want to not worry about spacing, but for the purposes of this conversation, spacing we can think about later. You know, you can make the argument that you don't need to change the keyframe timing off of twos if you make the spacing work. And yeah, 100%. I'm making the argument that it's even better to do both. Push the spacing and push your keyframe timing to be not in a straight pattern forever. And then the other thing we're not talking about is frame rate. And to illustrate this, this is all at 30 frames per second. Spider-Verse was done on 24 frames a second. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, 24 frames a second. A lot of the movies, Puss in Boots, 24 frames a second. It's what you're going to see most commonly. But I wanted to do this in 30 to illustrate that this concept works no matter what your hard frames per second is set at. 12, 24, 30, 60, 120. The point stands. When you're making an artistic choice to strip out frames, you're not married to doing so in a pattern. You have the ability to add flourishes and deviates and push things and caricature your timing. So here are examples of that. In the upper left, we have everything on ones. This is your standard computer animation. All the keys are interpolated. There's no choppiness, right? Here we have on twos. This is kind of the Spider-Verse look, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles look, except remember we're at 30 frames a second, so it's going to look a little bit smoother than you're used to seeing in those trailers. Now here on threes, we're getting closer to the Spider-Verse look. It's a little bit choppier, right? And then to push that idea even more, here we have on fours. You can see it's even choppier. Now I want you to take a real close look at the timeline. All these little red lines are keyframes. And they are all evenly spaced apart. Remember I was talking about a script that will allow you to bake on twos, bake on threes, bake on fours. What that means is it's stripping out your middle frames. It's stripping out your interpolation, and it's chop, 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 chop. Now, in this middle section, I'm saying no, it's not interesting enough when things are strictly patterned. I'm down here, I'm taking things, I'm putting things on ones, I'm putting things surrounding that on twos and threes, and I'm playing with the timing. Ideally, you want to think about spacing at the same time as all this, but again, this is just talk about concepts. And then to push that even further here on the far right, I just push the contrast even further. And when you watch the video compared to this one, you really feel a difference. This feels more like traditional animation in that all of the keyframes are specifically chosen for their very specific timing. And then if you look at that compared to, say, over here, you have that cool choppy effect, but doesn't it feel expected? You know, there's a subconscious rhythm that we're keying into even as non-animators. You know, we've watched this for more than a second, and we know to expect a keyframe every 3 seconds. Whereas down here in these examples, we are not expecting the keyframes as much. It's a surprise when things go on ones. It's a surprise when things go slower into fours. And so when would I want to go into ones and fours? So a slow character, not moving much like I'm doing right now. That guy could be on fours, fives. He's not moving much, right? You don't need a lot of keys to describe that. But the second I go into a faster motion, that's when I want to go fours, fours, threes, 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 two, 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 one, and then back out into slower. You want to have ramps. I've included this spinning green box just so we have a reference of what 30 frames per second looks like. So why do you want to have a 30 frames per second show, but strip out some frames of your main characters? Well, you can have your background moving at 30 frames a second while your character is moving this way. You can have surrounding characters moving at slightly different keyframes than this character. That can add a sense of disjointedness, but sometimes that can be something you want. The idea is that we're letting the animators make these decisions. We're letting the director make these decisions on a per shot basis. We're not saying this is the rule, the computer has to do it this way. We're taking more opportunities to make statements, to tie things to thematics, to tie things to character and visual style, yada, yada, yada. So I hope this solidifies the concepts a little bit better. I've worked on a lot of these kind of stepped projects, most of which are under NDA. Can't really talk about too much. So thanks for watching. Have a great day and happy animating.